important year, particularly because this year has been so traumatic with COVID-19. You know, the BRICS have struggled at times to flesh out a proactive agenda. They have very long statements and communiques, but the actions that they've been able to take are not that many. They have a BRICS bank, they have a swap lines, etc. COVID-19 at least has decimated, unfortunately, populations in Brazil and in India, to an extent also elsewhere, Russia. But the real benefit out here is that, you know, the BRICS have great capability in terms of vaccine research in China and in Russia, and we have great capability in vaccine production in India and also in China. And so the BRICS are really in a great position to contribute not just to themselves but to the multilateral system, to the international, to countries around the world. Once we do have a vaccine, and one that needs to be disseminated quickly and cheaply.
So let's expand on that, because we did see President Putin advocating for more cooperation between the countries to fight COVID-19. How has that been working so far, and what more can be done?
At this point of time, there is obviously tremendous progress which has happened in terms of vaccine development. Final stage of clinical trials are happening in Brazil with regard to the Chinese company. And of course also the Russians, in terms of their vaccine, have made great strides. Of course also in the West we've had some good news from Pfizer and Moderna. India has always had this tremendous manufacturing capability. During the AIDS crisis, India was a very important producer of these drugs. And India stands once again well positioned to be that low-cost manufacturer to the world, to put out a lot of these vaccines, which will be required in huge numbers. And I think that's what President Putin was alluding to, of how there is the synergy within the grouping on COVID-19 in contributing for themselves and to countries around the world.
Now, different countries in the BRICS group obviously have been impacted differently economically. So what role do you think the BRICS New Development Bank will play in economic assistance now and in the post-pandemic recovery?
The BRICS Bank is still early in its development, so it is not a huge disburser of loans as of now. So there isn't that much that the BRICS Bank is owed either, because all the countries have signed on to the G20's debt suspension initiative. But the BRICS countries should, the BRICS Bank, should really ramp up its loan capability to many poorer countries so that they can have access to the vaccine to make the necessary procurement. And I think the BRICS countries are very well positioned this year to really increase their loan portfolio, and perhaps even do this on very, very soft terms, because this is, after all, a once-in-a-century pandemic.
And obviously a lot of other things are still going on within these economic relationships. I'd like you to focus on the relationship between China and India, especially in light of the geopolitical military issues between the two countries.
The situation obviously is not good from a military, political, or an economic perspective. The Indians were very quick to wherever there was government procurement in terms of Chinese products, be it in the rail sector, power sector, there was impositions placed, obviously also in terms in the technology and data flow area. Some of those might not come off, but I think at least in the public procurement area, the Indian government might be in two minds as to how it plans to move forward on China henceforth. But I'm afraid, you know, the border crisis, this is not the last time we'll have parties come across the line of control. We can see this recur again, and it might happen. The Indians might feel like at the time of Doklam to go across the border, and who knows what China might do then in terms of Indian business in China. So we are at a very delicate stage, and I don't think India and China should at this point be banking on each other's market per se in terms of really growing their economies. I don't foresee that for the immediate future.
And just very quickly, we have about 15 seconds. We heard the President of South Africa calling for more investment in Africa. What can and should fellow BRICS countries be doing in that regard?
I think the BRICS have made China particularly has made investments, others can make investments, but the more important fact I would say is become big importers from Africa now. fire up the African economic engine, and then suck in those imports from them so that Africa can create a virtuous cycle of growth and prosperity.
All right, thank you. Always great to see